Cowabunga! Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Playmates Ninja Turtles Classics Wave 2 Beebop and Rocksteady figures. Originally, I was going to review these guys separately, but I kind of realized they share a lot. Just like the Turtles in Wave 1, which I never got around to reviewing because when I had them, everybody was reviewing them, and I kind of felt like it was a little too much at that point. But the basic body on these guys are basically the same thing, so I really didn't think it was worth doing two separate reviews. So we're just going to cover both figures in one big chunk here, so let's dive right in, not waste any time. And also, just like the Turtles, they come with their display bases, and I love these bases. Has the Ninja Turtles logo, just like it was back in the cartoon. Their individual name up front, and then two peg holes. Looks like a sewer grate. Nothing really on the back side of them. But these really help to display the figures. They make them a little more stable than they would be on their own, and they look really cool and are pretty much perfect for a Ninja Turtle stand. I think I would have liked it if there was some paint on the Ninja Turtles logo to bring it out and make it look that much cooler. But really, if you want to, just be careful with some red and green paint, and you could really do that yourself. Beebop comes with his little drill handgun here. Very cool looking, just solid black plastic, but it's still a really nice sculpt. This is straight out of the vintage action figure, had a very similar accessory with it, though nowhere near as detailed. But very, very cool looking. I'm glad he has that. Now, the original figure also had come with a knife, and we don't get that with Beebop, and that's a little bit of a bummer. Rocksteady comes with two weapons. He comes with this big gun here. It has a little bipod up here on the front, an actual handle. It's okay looking. It really could have used some extra paint. The Ninja Turtles weapons all had multicolors on them for both the metal and then the wood or whatever the handle was. And Donatello had wrappings on his bow staff. This is just really bland looking. And Beebop's works a little better, being a flat black plastic. This being gray really leaves a lot to be desired. It's also very hard to get Rocksteady to hold it with two hands. In my mind, it works okay as saying, oh, well, this is like a big gun that a normal guy would have to carry with two hands, but because he's mutated with a rhino, he could hold it in one. But still, probably not my preferred way of displaying the character. Rocksteady also comes with a machete, which is really cool looking. Once again, that same gray plastic, so it's a little bland. Some good detail on the handle, though, a little serrated section back here. I like this. I really like this weapon for him. I think I'm going to display him with this specifically. And the great part is we kind of have all the accessories from the vintage figure. He had the gun, he had the knife or sword, and he had like a sewer lid shield or a trash can lid shield, and I'll just say the display base kind of makes up for that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these guys kind of share the same basic body, but all the detail is unique to the characters. Beebop has a really kind of gross-looking, fleshy warthog pig look to his face. It's really cool. He's got his tusks sticking up, though they don't quite look like they belong in his mouth. They kind of just look like they're stuck to the side of his head, which is how the toy's made, but it just doesn't look like his lip is curling out enough to accommodate that tooth. The colors on here are very non-washed. They're very just pure colors, so pure white and a pure flesh tone. He's got the nose ring there. Has his shades on, the purple shade, straight out of the cartoon, the purple mohawk. This is very much the TV 80s cartoon portrayal. He's got his red vest on. I was surprised this isn't a soft rubber. This is actually just a hard sculpted vest on there. He has his turtle shell shoulder pads, which actually are a little flexible, not to hinder articulation. Here on the back, we just have all the muscles poking through the vest. There's this bone necklace, his little bandolier. Very well detailed little chain as a belt, torn up jeans, which look pretty darn good. And, you know, it's funny, this may be one of the first figures I've owned as an adult that has Converse on. Really like the Converse here. Very cool looking. Very 80s. I like it. He's got the two big old grenades on his vest. They don't come off. They're stuck there forever. Then he has the wrist cuffs on either arm. Now, looking at the prototype figure they showed at Toy Fair, these were painted. They had silver studs on them. That's a bit of a disappointment that we didn't get that with this figure. The hands on Beebop, he's got his 4 fingers here, and I like the way they sculpted these. He doesn't look like he has a trigger finger, but the trigger on his gun will go into either of these index fingers here. So It's a great hand sculpt in my opinion. Now I absolutely love the sculpting on Rocksteady. I think he just looks so pissed off and so cool as a rhino. They did a really good job on this. I really just dig that. The yellow eye in there, all the sharp teeth sticking out and the horns on top of the nose, his ears sticking up through the flaps on his helmet. His helmet is just a solid green, which is how it was in the vintage toy, but the prototype did show it painted with like a brown band and silver highlights on the lens, and the cap is removable. I kind of like him better without it, honestly. He looks a little more menacing. Here he has his yellowish tan tank top on, which is straight out of the cartoon. In the original toy, he had a black tank top on, so very different design. I kind of wish I would have put some of the toy design elements here. In the toy, he had kind of warts going down the back of him, and those aren't here. That would have been kind of a neat little added texture to him. But he has his bandolier here. He has a kind of string going across with a grenade on his chest. Once again, lacking some paint detail. There's a silver hoop back here holding the grenade to the chain, but the pin on the grenade itself is just green. Those big, bulky arms. He has a little green bandage wrapped around this one, which is kind of a nice touch. Brown wrist cuffs on him. His hands are not nearly as cool as Beebop's. They actually do have an exposed trigger finger, so when he's holding the machete, it looks a little awkward, and it kind of hinders his ability to hold it. He's got his belt there, nicely detailed, his camo pants with the turtle shells on the side. These aren't flexible, they're just hard mounted to the upper leg. And then some cool looking work boots on here, but once again needing a little extra paint detail to really make them pop. For articulation, they're both very similar. They both have a ball joint at the base of the head, so you could swivel side to side, up and down a little bit, but you really are hindered on the motion. Rocksteady's juts forward a little more, so I feel like you can get a little more of a range up and down out of his than Beebop's, but still not great. Pin socket shoulders on either one. You can go up and down, forward and back. As I mentioned before, Beebop has the pliable shoulder pads, so he can actually not be hindered by those. A swivel at the bicep, double jointed at the elbow, but both of them are so muscular that the double joint doesn't work all that well. You could swivel at the wrist as well as bend in and out, which is really nice. Now on Beebop's one arm here, I think you could actually swivel at the base of this cuff and at the top. Yeah, you can. So he actually almost has a weird extra bit of articulation in here. They both have a diaphragm joint, so you could swivel side to side on it. A little up and down on Rocksteady, not much. Beebop's a little better with the up and down, and the cool thing is his bandolier here, they painted black all the way up so that depending on where he's crunched, you still see the black and it doesn't really break up the look of it until you turn it. And he can't turn that well either because of the red vest. Legs can go forward and back, out to the side on a ball joint, and they could swivel. It's fairly limited because it just is a ball joint and not anything a little fancier. It would have been nicer to have something a bit better than that. Have double jointed knees, which have a great range on them. And both figures are only able to swivel at the top of the ankle, which is a major hindrance in posing. You can't bend the foot at all, which would have really helped get some dynamic looks going on with these guys. Overall, I think these guys are a really good pair of figures. As I mentioned in the review, I think the paint could have been a little nicer and we could have gotten a little bit extra more articulation on them to really make them perfect. They're not as knock it out of the ballpark awesome as the four turtles were. Those were pretty spot on with very minor complaints on my part, even though I never reviewed them on here. But these guys leave a little extra to be desired, but are still incredibly solid action figures. So I'm definitely going to give them a very solid recommendation. I wish it could have been higher. I wish we had a little extra paint detail on them, and I wish we had a little extra articulation. The articulation being the main one, just because you can't change that now that these figures are made. The paint you could always add on yourself or send it out to a customizer or somebody who's really good at painting and have them fix it up for you. But articulation, you really can't do anything without some super heavy modifications to these guys. Unfortunately, they come with their display stand, so you can kind of keep them in more dynamic poses and have that extra bit of support, so that's at least okay. In my preference, I think the Rocksteady is the better of the two, but I might be biased because as a kid, I had a Rocksteady figure and I never had Beebop for whatever reason. Of all the Ninja Turtles I had, Beebop never made it into my collection. But I kind of think the darker paint scheme on Rocksteady is part of what makes him more appealing to me. The kind of bright red and bright pinkish flesh tone on Beebop kind of makes him look a little more cartoony than I'd like, and Rocksteady looks a little more sinister. Now, I'm a little disappointed because from what I've heard, the next wave of the Ninja Turtles Classics line is going to basically be a repaint on the original 4 figures, making them look like their movie counterparts from their original Ninja Turtles movie. And I love that movie, and I would love to have them in my collection, but I was really, really hoping that we would get a Splinter Shredder set next time or something. I think Shredder more than Splinter I would really need, but definitely want to kind of keep going with this cartoon style and not quite ready to see them step away from it just yet. Hopefully Toy Fair in February we'll get some more details on what's going on. Hopefully we'll get some really good news on this line. When they did release these 2 guys, it seemed like Toys R Us was also re-releasing the original 4 Turtles. So if you didn't pick up any of these, they may actually be readily available at your local Toys R Us. Make sure you check out Outside the Box Reviews on Facebook. There'll be a link below. Also check out Outside the Box Reviews on Instagram. Username Outside the Box Reviews. And until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews.